welcome to the lecture series in computer science. We are seeing a series of lectures in the subject Agile methodologies. We will be seeing topic on agility in design and testing. The contents of the session are design thinking and its components, 5 stages in design thinking, designing for agility, benefits of designing in agile projects, agile testing and its principles, advantages of using this agile testing life cycle. So, what is design thinking? A design thinking is a process or a sort of methodology for solving complex problems, finding opportunities and implementing the most effective solutions. Design thinking can be very useful for companies because of its practical results and the human perspective. Let us see the vital components involved in design thinking. As far as the components are concerned, it is broadly classified into 3 groups. One is called human desirability, second component is economic viability, third one technologically feasibility. So, what is human desirability? Anything and everything, any project for the matter, you wish to satisfy the need of the customer, you try to delight the customer, more than satisfaction, you try to make the customer delighted. So, it is you try to satisfy the desires of the customer. It is again one of the component. It speaks about the human desires, human desirability. Then the second component is economic viability, whether you might be having n number of thinking, you might think that you will make wonders in the project, but are you financially strong? Are you capable enough budget wise? Will you be able to fund? If you are going to develop a software of your own to an external client or the customer, client and customer are one the same, to an external person, whether will you be able to do complete funding if at all the customer has not given you the initial funds? Will you be able to cope up with proper budgeting? Will you be able to make proper estimations? So, those things come under this economic viability. Whether is it economically feasible, whether is it viable, whether is it economically viable. The third component speaks about technological feasibility. Again, you would like to build a software, but do you have such a software or do you have such an access to a particular language? Have you purchased a database? Where will you store it? If at all you are going to store it in the cloud, have you purchased for the cloud server? Have you made the payment for the cloud server? Do you know the technology that you are going to use it? So, these things happen to come under the technological feasibility. So, my dear viewers, as far as design thinking is concerned, these 3 components are highly important. One is human desirability, second one is economic viability, third one is technological feasibility. Then let us now see the 5 important stages in the design thinking process. The stages are empathize, define, ideate, prototype and test. Now, let us see each and every phase in detail. What do you mean by empathize? As far as empathize is concerned, it is where you get the requirements, it is where you gather the requirements. Now, when you are gathering the requirements, you need to have it in your mind that whether will I be able to do the design. Before doing any project, before doing any sort of execution, you need to have a dream of your project. You need to have a dream, then only like my software will resemble like this, will look like this, I will be working like this. So you need to have a dream. So that dream, it should come when you are going to gather the requirements. So when you are going to empathize, this, how do you gather requirements? How do you ask queries to the customer? How do you respond to the customer and get the requirements? Based on the requirements that has been gathered, this empathize, it will help to define the problem. Then after definition, you ideate. Ideation means you come out with your own ideas. How am I going to build it? Will it be feasible? So what do I require? Where do I have my office? How many resources I require? So you ideate. Then based on the idea, you create a prototype. And when you are going to create a prototype, after you create, initially you might not be knowing, you might be knowing only few of the requirements. So you create a prototype, but after you create the prototype, you might think, oh, okay, I should have done this in order to improvise. I should have done that so that my prototype would have looked better, which means you are learning from the prototype. So learning from the prototype to spark new ideas. So again you go into this ideate process. After you get a new idea, again you go into this ideate process. Then again you build the prototype. If you get even more ideas, again, so this process becomes an iterative process. So after building the prototype, what do? You test it. You test the workable software or the feature that you have developed. Now when you are testing it, you might get even more better ideas. This is how I should have done this. If I had done this, my product would have been even more better. If I had designed like this, my work would have been even more better. So when you get such ideas, again you go to this ideate phase. So test, create new ideas for the project. Now, so when you are testing it, you might be learning. So when you are going to give it, show it to the customer, and after testing, he will be giving even more better ideas. So you learn about the users through testing. So when you learn about the users through testing, again you get the requirements from the client, again you move on to this empathize phase. So in the empathize, it helps to define the problem. In design, after designing, it is used to ideate. After ideation, you create a prototype. Now you test the prototype, you try to learn from the prototypes, wherein it will spark new ideas, and after new ideas you go into ideation phase again. After ideation, create prototype, revise the prototype, recreate it, then after recreation you test it. When you test, you get even more better ideas. So you create new ideas for the project, then again goes to the ideation, then goes to the prototype, then goes to the testing. When you show it to the customer end, when he is going to give even more inputs, then you learn about the users through testing. Then again the process go into this empathize phase. So this is how this work goes on. As well, if he is not going to give any new ideas, if he is going to ask you to redefine the project, if the customer is going to say something that is more proactive towards the working of the project, then this test, it reveals the insight that redefines the problem. So it goes to the defining phase. So define, ideate, prototype, and then test. So these are the 5 stages in decision making process. Then let us see how to make, or let us see the designing in agility. As far as the designing in agility is concerned, it is something like Venn diagram. It is broadly classified into 2 groups. One is business design, other one is transformation. So the intermediary between 2 circles, when you join together, you have an intersection point. that intersection point you validate. When you validate the business design, it transforms. So, there you get the designing and agility. There you get new ideas, which makes the business design to be transformed. So, as far as the business design is concerned, it is understanding the core strategy, what you are going to do, how you are going to ideate. So, it understands the core strategy. It is used for designing the operational model for the prototype design. It is used to design this prototype model. It acts as a target culture, reviewing and aligning the organizational structure is done in this business design. You view, you do review. What is review? After designing a model, developing a model, you check what is there, and when you get more and more ideas, you review and you revamp. So, you review and it is aligned to the needs of the organizational structure. Then the way of working leads to more and more revamping, more and more review, more and more revision will make a clear design, will make a clear design. Now, what is transformation? Transformation is the art of moving the business to a new model. So, in order to transform, what does it do? In order to transform the business to a new model, you need to validate. So, what does this validation do? Transformation validates the design, and if you are not transforming, then it is a folly. It is a folly in the sense it is all foolishness. So, you are supposed to transform. Transformation, it validates the design. If your software design, if it has reached the next level, which means if it has reached from the previous level to a new level, which means the design has been transformed. So, that is the reason transformation validates the design. Then next is, let us see some of the benefits of designing in agile projects. Greater the ability to adapt to changes in the market, greater customer connection and satisfaction, accelerated development and distribution of new products, increased employee engagement and productivity, cost savings through efficient operations. So, these are some of the benefits of designing the agile projects. Now, let us see the second part of this session, agile testing. What is agile testing? Is it same as that of a traditional life cycle model? Is it same as that of a separate phase that is put up in a traditional life cycle model? Definitely not. My dear viewers, the basic difference between a traditional development life cycle model testing phase and with that of agile testing is that as here in agile testing, you do testing then and there, you do validations then and there, you do verifications then and there. So, agile testing is a continuous process rather than being sequential. The testing begins at the start of the project and there is ongoing integration between testing and development. The common objective of agile development and testing is to achieve a high product quality. Agile testing includes an incremental approach to testing. In this type of software testing, features, the small releases, small increments, small working software, those features are tested as they are developed. Then let us see a bird's eye view, a glimpse of agile testing. Agile testing is unstructured as compared to the waterfall approach and there is minimal planning. What is a waterfall approach? Does it an agile model? My dear viewers, waterfall approach belongs to traditional model. wherein we are now speaking with respect to agile model. So we are making a small comparative study with respect to a waterfall model. So this agile testing is unstructured as compared to the waterfall approach. Why? It is because in a waterfall approach you have a separate phase called as a testing phase. You do all your testing activity after completing your development. Whereas here in this agile approach, the testing is done then and there, and that is the reason this agile testing is said to be an unstructured as compared to this waterfall approach, and it requires minimum planning. You plan as you go, whereas in the case of traditional model, testing is done, you plan upfront. There in traditional model you plan upfront. Here in agile model you plan as you go. You do not know whether you are going to test today, but you make the testing immediately after you complete one small submodule or a module. You do testing again and again. You integrate 2 or 3 modules and you do testing. You do testing again and again, you call it as regression testing. You do top down testing, bottom up testing again and again, in par with the development team, in par with the code that has been developed. So that is the reason this agile testing is called as an unstructured testing approach. Next, this agile testing is well suited for small projects. As testing begins in the start of the project, errors can be fixed in the middle of the project. Very less documentation is required for agile testing. As far as the entire agile model is concerned, whatever is needed only for the features that has been developed, only the needed contents are being documented. We do not have a comprehensive documentation as unlike you have it in your traditional model. Here in agile model, in agile testing exclusively, the documentation is written only for whatever you are going to test, only for that particular feature alone. So it is a very limited documentation, it is a very minimal documentation. Then the next point is, every iteration has its own testing phase. So then the regression test can be run every time when new function or logic are released. Then the shippable feature of the product are delivered to the customer at the end of an iteration. What does it mean? Is it a full product? My dear viewers, the shippable feature denotes small features, small releases, incremental delivery. So the smaller release of the product are delivered to the customer at the end of each iteration, every iteration. The testers and developers work closely in agile testing. They will sit across, and we have seen this in a model called extreme programming, which is in short called as XP, wherein in XP you have a technique called as pair programming. In pair programming, 2 people will be sitting and working for the same logic of code. So here in agile testing, the tester and developer, they will work closely in agile testing. The user acceptance is performed at the end of every sprint. At the end of each and every sprint, the acceptance will be obtained from the user, from the customer, so that he will be happy and the team will also be happy. So he knows what is going on, what is happening. Then the testers need to establish communication with the developers to analyze the requirements and planning, and for future planning even. So it is a responsibility for the entire agile team, in order to be dynamic, in order to be enthusiastic and energetic, they need to have good set of communication, they need to have good set of interaction, they need to collaborate. All are equal. There is no hierarchy being followed as far as an agile model is concerned. So this is about the glimpse of agile testing. Then let us now see some of the principles of agile testing. As I already mentioned, the testing is continuous. The testing moves the project forward. It makes, only because of the testing you are able to detect the errors, you are able to fix the errors, you are able to correct the errors. After correcting the errors, which means your project progresses forward. So, testing moves the or makes the project to move forward. Then, since the customer representative or the product owner is part of the Agile team, you will be getting continuous feedback from the customer or the customer representative. Then, tests are being performed by the whole team, decrease time of feedback response. So, which means the response time required in feedback decreases. As the project progresses, as the customer representative became the part of the Agile team, as you are going to show them what is happening, they will be in the initial days, they will be giving you more and more queries, but as days progresses, the queries will literally it will minimize. So, that is the reason you get a decreased time of feedback response, and this Agile testing is a simplified process. Why? Because you do testing activity, then and there a small snippet of code has been delivered. My dear viewers, what is a snippet? A snippet denotes part of code, a small code. So, when you are going to test the snippet part of code, then when you are going to develop a snippet, you do testing activity. So, that is the reason it is simplified. Then in Agile testing you have a clean code. What is a clean code? The defects are raised, the raised defects are fixed within the same iteration, and thereby it keeps the code clean. And as I said in my earlier slide, as far as Agile testing is concerned, very minimal documentation is required. Whatever feature that you are going to test it, only you are going to create documentation only for the feature that is being tested. So, one of the principles is it requires less documentation. Now, let us see the Agile testing methods. We have three different methods. One is called as the behavior driven development, which is in short called as BDD. It improves the communication among project stakeholders so that all the members correctly understand each feature before the development process starts. So, it speaks about the behavior of the system, behavior of the software. Then the second method is said to be acceptance test driven development, which is in short called as ATDD. This acceptance test driven development, it focuses on involving team members with different perspectives such as the customer, developer and the testers. Then the third method denotes the exploratory testing. Exploratory testing emphasizes working software over comprehensive documentation. The individuals and interactions are more important than the process and tools. Customer collaboration holds greater value than contract negotiation, because in traditional life cycle model you would have seen comprehensive documentation, you would have seen contract negotiation, you would have worked with process and tools, wherein here in Agile testing method and exclusively in this exploratory testing you work with the individuals, and more interaction towards individual will give you more and more success, and the customer has been collaborated with the team, they mingle with the team. So, the more and more they collaborate, the more and more they interact, the more and more success you get with respect to this Agile model. Then let us see about this Agile testing life cycle. This Agile testing life cycle in detail, it totally has 5 different phases. One is called as impact assessment, second one is the agility test planning, third one daily scrums, fourth one agility review meeting, fifth one release readiness. Now, let us see about the impact assessment. Impact assessment, it is used to gather the inputs from the stakeholders and users. This will act as the feedback for the next development cycle. Then let us see how the test is being planned. So, here you start test plan meetup, all the stakeholders come together to plan. Who is a stakeholder? Anyone who is responsible, who is involved in the project is said to be a stakeholder. So, all stakeholders come together to plan the schedule of testing process, meet frequently, and the meeting frequency increases and thereby the deliverables also increases. Then daily scrum. In a daily scrum you have daily stand up meetings. This include the everyday stand up morning meetings to catch up on the status of testing and to set the goals for the whole day, wherein when you are going to use a scrum framework, you will be asked only 3 questions. One is, what did you do yesterday, what you are going to do today, what are the impediments that you faced, or what are the issues that you faced when you were working yesterday. You had any issues, and if at all you had, how did you resolve it. So, those are the 3 questions. So, similarly you have the daily stand up meeting over here too. Then as far as the agility review meeting is concerned, you have weekly review meeting with the stakeholders, and they meet to review and assess the progress against milestones. Then as far as the release readiness is concerned, you have approval meetings for deployment, wherein at this stage we review the features that have been developed or implemented and that are ready to go live or not, and based on this, when it goes ready, again you do this impact assessment. So, my dear viewers, as far as this agile testing life cycle is concerned, it is broadly classified with 5 groups. One is agility test planning, daily scrum, agility review meeting, release readiness, and the impact assessment. Now, let us see the advantages of agile testing. It saves time and money. Agile testing reduces documentation. It is flexible and highly adaptable to changes. It provides a way for receiving regular feedback from the end user. Better determination of issues are handled through daily meetings. Now, let us summarize this session. We saw about design thinking and its components. We saw about the 5 stages of design thinking. We saw about what does designing or how designing is required for agility. We saw some of the benefits of designing in agile projects, and we saw about what an agile testing is about, and we as well saw some of the principles related to agile testing. We saw about the agile testing life cycles. We as well concluded this session by seeing the advantages of agile testing. Thank you.